Now let's transform this guy. This is probably not the most dynamic pose that you can pull off with this guy, but honestly, I've been waiting for this look for a very long time. Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we're talking about RH-02 Springer, coming right up. When I was a kid, my cousin had G1 Springer and I always wanted a Springer, but I only ended up having to look at the box, and that's why I've been looking for this look for a very long time. So today, let's take a look at this Springer, RH-02, to see if this guy really is that definitive Springer that we've been all waiting for. Recently, there are some discussions about this guy. When the news first came out, people are talking about this is a KO of open play big spring from 2017. But when people actually got this figure, a new speculation said that this is actually a marketing stunt from open play. They're collaborating with open play, and this is just a reissue of the same figure. But whatever the case, one thing for sure, this guy is a lot better than open play big spring for a few reasons. For those who had open play big spring, you can clearly tell that there are some differences. So right out of the gate, you can see he's got a new face, which is very critical. This is a very important aspect to have a figure. The likeness of this figure to the character is very critical. So that's a good change. Of course, this face is still a little bit pale and wide, but a lot better than the old face. So that's a good change, right? Generally, this is a very good figure. The price point is the same as open play when it first came out from 2017. So to get a better figure with the same price, I think it's well worth it. First thing first, something you have to do to make this guy work. Now, this is a little bit frustrating because if you don't do this, this guy probably you cannot really transform him properly, which is these two side pieces, like here, right? Now, if I can just use this. As you can see, this guy has this transformation bit that has two tabs. One is on the top, which is this one on the top, right? This tab goes into there, that hole. And also another tab, that tab goes into that hole, right? So that for this piece to transform properly, you need to tap these two things together. Now, the problem when you take this guy out of the box, the problem is that this tab is too thick, the one on the top. It's way too thick, so you have to sand it down. You have to sand from the bottom surface to make it thinner to go into that hole. And then for this tab, you have to sand two sides. One is the front side, that like the outside side, to make it thinner. And then you have to sand on the like springer's left side, right? You have to sand this side to make it smaller to go into that hole. You have to do this, otherwise this won't tap in. And when you take it out of the box, it just opens up like that. Meaning that even out of the factory, you cannot, they didn't do this. They know they cannot force this piece in. So that's a problem. You have to do that right out of the gate. But rather than that, there's no other issues. So that's something you have to do to make it work. Let me very quickly talk about what I like and what I don't like about this guy. First off, I like the color. The color looks very vibrant. You see this green, this yellow, they chose like very vibrant color to make this figure just pop. This is something I really like about it. Second, I like the tolerance of the joints, right? These joints are tight, but like a comfortable tight, if that makes sense. I haven't been able to handle a figure like, this comfortable for quite some time. So I like that. And the third thing about this guy, this probably sounds a little bit crazy, but I like how the shoulder transforms. Back in 2017, when there was this massive Springer war, I passed all of them because I don't like any of them because of my backstory about Springer. When I was a kid, I don't get to play the actual toy a lot. I get to stare at the box art a lot. So it matters to me a lot that it has this look. I mean, I don't know the comic back then, and I don't know this is the comic look. But when the movie 86 movie came out, I was like, that doesn't look like Springer, especially the shoulder piece. But this guy gives you two options. One is that you can actually do this. And then, of course, you can transform this piece a little bit to make it like a more, you just fold this piece like this and just rotate 90 and just wrap this piece around the shoulder. And you get a cartoon or movie look. Honestly, I'm not a fan of this, but the good thing is you have choices, right? But if you just do this, you got screw holes that they use some ways to cover it. So this is one of the things that I like about this guy. Sounds crazy, I know, but that's something I really care about this guy. So for me, that is the definitive feature of Springer. I'm not saying this is the definitive because there is something I don't like about this guy. First off, he's too thin. Like, maybe it doesn't really show that obviously on camera, but he's too thin. Springer is kind of a beefy guy. Whether it's the G1 box art or in the cartoon, it's too thin. Of course, it's a good thing that he has no kibble, like no backpack at all, but the upper body is probably fine. If I hold it like this, you're like, pretty heroic look, right? That's pretty good. But if you look at the lower piece, you're like, it's not the best. So articulation wise, this guy is pretty decent. One thing is he has a neck. So has a neck joint and also a ball joint on the bottom of the head. So he can look down quite a bit, which is a very good sign for posing. And he can also look up quite a bit, right? That's also very nice. I like that. And for the shoulder, if you transform the shoulder like this, you don't really get much of angle here. But if you do this, you have a 90, right? And of course, 360 like that. And you have bicep and double hinge. So this is another sacrifice. if you transform like this, you do get this whole range, but if you do this, this kibble will actually block the way and you end up having just this much range. So it depends on how do you want to transform the shoulder piece, basically. It comes down to that. There's no ab crunch, but that's okay because this is basically equal to ab crunch if we can just look past that. Waist for 360, there's no hindrance, that's good. And then there's another thing that they probably need to improve just for a little bit. That is, this joint is way too tight. Like how tight? Let me just grab it tightly. It's like uncomfortably tight. Now, that might not be a problem if they don't design another transformer joint at the thigh. So here's what it is. If you wanted to take the leg back, this is what happens. This is one of the transformation joints, right? The thigh folds in half, but this is pretty tight because if you just hold it like this, it doesn't open by itself. But since this is too strong of a ratchet joint, you just basically can't pull it back. You have to hold at the base of this joint, which make this whole thing even more painful. So that's really tight. And for this part, it also goes out to the side on ratchet, so that's also pretty good. For the knee, that's 90, and it goes back, but I don't want to just, you can see that it does go back, but this is not a good design. This should really, go easy on this joint to make this whole effort like a little more smooth. But it's kind of defeating the purpose of this thigh cut being very strong. And then the knee rotation is at the cut, like around here. It's okay, I don't like it, but since it's around thigh, so it doesn't really break the sculpt too much. So that's like serviceable. And then you have the feet. I don't like the shape of the feet. It doesn't look good, but well, what you can do. It goes this far, and then it goes to the front that far. It doesn't go backward because this piece blocks it. So that's the major point of the articulation, and I leave the complaint to the last. That is the fist, right? The fingers. The thumb is fixed, and this index is also lack of a joint. So it's like always taunting somebody, hey, come over here. So he can do that, like, but nothing else. He cannot point. That's a problem. And another thing is that, as you can see, this still pops open, but better than open play, big spring. Another thing is about how this guy holds the weapon. You see, this is just a round handle. There's no peg or anything. So is the sword, right? So literally you just have to have this guy holding the weapon instead of a peg in position. It works pretty good for the gun because this gun, the handle of the gun is slightly like stronger or thicker than the sword, because this will actually serve as a propeller for the helicopter, so it needs to rotate, right? So it's slightly thinner, and that becomes a problem for this guy to hold it, because you're just using the hand to hold it, and it just goes to loose like very easily if it falls out. That's a problem. If it is a remold, they changed the tabs, like the inside tab of these things, they should change this as well. There should be a way, right? There should be a palm, there's a peg in the palm, and you can have a slot in here. It doesn't really hinder anything, and you can just actually put it in. But that's a problem. So that's the articulation very quickly. Generally, it's good. Bear in mind, this is a 2017 design. This is a reissue with a slightly different paint. So I can live with that. This is still better than most of the Springer figures out there, in my opinion, in the market. So I'm really okay with this, especially with the price point. It's about $40 to $50 right now for masterpiece scale. And I'm happy with that. And here's a quick size comparison. He's almost the same height at Optimus, and he's way taller than a carbot, like Hot Rod here, and he's almost like at the shoulder, the chest area of Ultra Magnus. So pretty big guy. I suppose this is bigger than he's supposed to be, but still scales rather nicely, so that's okay. Now, in summary, I think this guy really worth the money. For a $40, $50 piece, this gives you everything that you expected from that price range, and also this exceeds my expectation because of the shoulder piece and the paint. The face still is not the best, but it serves as a proper Springer face, rather than people having to go getting Infernal's faceplate and installed on Big Spring. That's a worse scenario. You don't have to do that now. And with the modification, the changes of these tabs and everything, this is a pretty decent figure, and I highly recommend it. And that's that for the video. I'll see you next time.